Picture this. You're locked inside a maximum security prison. We're talking impossibly thick concrete walls, heavily armed guards who are literally always watching you, the whole shebang. The entire system is built from the ground up to strip away your freedom, completely and permanently. But you escape. Against all odds, you actually make it out. Then, inevitably, your luck runs out, you get caught, and you're tossed right back behind those exact same walls, this time under even tighter security. And then, you escape again. Now I want you to imagine pulling off this impossible feat not just once or twice, but an absolutely astonishing number of times. Sounds like a flashy Hollywood movie script, right? The kind where you really have to suspend your disbelief. But guys, this story is not fiction. It's about a very real guy named Stephen J. Russell, a man whose life was this wild, tangled web of rampant fraud, utterly baffling prison escapes, and a love story so bizarre it actually did inspire a Hollywood movie. So let's just dive right into this explainer and unpack the unbelievable true story of Stephen J. Russell.
14 times. Seriously, 14. I really want us to just sit with that statistic for a second and let it fully sink in, because it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. According to accounts of his life, Stephen Russell broke out of prison 14 separate times. I mean, think about the sheer embarrassment this must have caused the authorities. Every single time they caught him, the prison admins had this golden opportunity to beef up security, tighten the rules, and hold endless meetings to make absolutely unequivocally sure a breakout could never happen again. And yet, somehow Russell kept finding a way out. And his escapes didn't just continue, they got more audacious and, frankly, way more unbelievable as the cycle went on.
Which brings us to the central, totally baffling mystery of our explainer today. How in the world does one man escape prison 14 times? How did he manage to repeatedly, consistently fool the exact same system that is funded, staffed, and explicitly designed to keep him locked away? It completely defies logic. Well, to understand how he bypassed the supposedly impenetrable walls of the modern justice system, we really need to rewind the clock and look at exactly who this guy was before the escapes even started.
Section 1. From cop to con man. You know, Russell's background is actually pretty shocking, and the ultimate irony of his story begins right at the start of his professional life. Born in the U.S., his early years didn't exactly scream future notorious prison escape artist. Far from it, actually. In a massive twist of fate, Russell started his career working on the exact opposite side of the law. He was a police officer. He was married, he had kids. From the outside looking in, he was living a completely ordinary by-the-book life. But simmering right beneath that aggressively normal exterior was a guy with this extraordinary latent psychological ability. He had this uncanny knack for making people trust him. He knew exactly what to say and exactly how to say it to get anyone to buy into his narrative. Eventually, the thrill of the illicit just totally took over. He pivoted completely away from his normal life and dove headfirst into high-stakes fraud and theft. He cooked up these incredibly elaborate schemes, learning exactly how to manipulate people in complex systems to get whatever he wanted. But as it usually goes with a life of crime, his luck eventually ran out. Russell was arrested, tried, and sent to prison as an inmate. Now, for most people, hearing that cell door slam shut, that's the end of the line. But for Stephen Russell, it was literally just the opening act.
Section 2. Weapons of Deception.
Okay, so when we picture a traditional prison break, our minds immediately go to brute force, right? We think of rioting inmates smashing down doors, helicopters landing in the yard, or a guy spending 20 years quietly making a crude weapon out of scrap metal. But Russell was a totally different breed of inmate. He quickly realized that the prison system had a vulnerability way bigger than its physical walls, a weakness he could just relentlessly exploit. And that weakness? People. Guards, officials, administrators, secretaries. Basically anyone who could be convinced to believe the right story if it was told with just the right amount of unearned confidence. His greatest weapon wasn't made of sharpened steel, it was made of words. Russell understood something profoundly simple but incredibly dangerous. Sometimes you don't need to risk your life breaking down a locked door. Sometimes you just need to convince the person holding the keys to politely open it for you.
So how exactly did he pull this off? Well, he developed this brilliant, totally nonviolent formula for his getaways. Step 1, he obsessively studied how the institutions worked. While other guys were lifting weights in the yard, he was observing protocols, memorizing schedules, and learning the internal bureaucratic procedures of the prison inside and out. Step 2, he searched for administrative weaknesses. He was looking for those little bureaucratic blind spots where communication naturally breaks down. And Step 3, he struck using pure deception. He created false identities, expertly impersonating various officials to exploit those exact blind spots. His biggest talent wasn't physical agility, it was high-level psychological manipulation. By weaponizing red tape, he could make experienced prison staff believe he was a judge, a doctor, or an executive. He essentially turned the prison's own bureaucracy into his getaway vehicle.
And honestly, perhaps nothing illustrates his sheer audacity quite like the infamous phone call release. In one of the most unbelievable stories from Russell's life, he didn't spend months chipping away at a concrete wall with a smuggled cafeteria spoon. No way! He reportedly just found a telephone, dialed the front office, and impersonated a prison official right over the line. Through sheer deception, a super calm demeanor, and knowing the exact administrative jargon to use, he actually managed to convince the staff on the other end that his bail had been lowered and he was officially cleared for release. And just like that, they processed the paperwork and let him walk right out to front gates. I mean, he literally called the front desk and ordered his own release. It is absolutely mind-boggling.
Section 3. The Phillip Morris Motive. So at this point, we really have to ask ourselves, why keep risking it? His freedom, no matter how clever the escape, never lasted forever. Eventually, the highly humiliated authorities would pour endless resources into tracking him down. He'd get arrested, face new charges, and be sent right back to prison. Knowing full well that his escapes always ended in recapture, and that every single capture brought more heat and way stricter living conditions, what could possibly drive a man to stare down that impending doom and repeat this impossible feat 14 times?
Well, the answer, surprisingly enough, is love. While serving time in the Texas prison system, Russell met a fellow inmate named Phillip Morris. The two of them quickly developed a deeply intense relationship, and Russell became absolutely single-mindedly determined to build a life with him. For Russell, the whole concept of prison fundamentally shifted. It was no longer just a place of state-mandated punishment that he wanted to outsmart for the fun of it. Those thick concrete walls and steel bars transformed into a literal physical barricade separating him from the man he loved. Getting out wasn't just a game anymore, it was an absolute necessity.
This desperate determination to reunite with Morris and to provide for him using his fraudulent skills became the massive, driving motivation behind his relentless attempts to escape custody. But man, it created a bizarre, exhausting, and completely unsustainable cycle for everyone involved. Just try to imagine the absolute exhaustion of the guards and U.S. Marshals caught in this loop. Escape, capture, prison, escape again, capture again, prison again, over and over and over again. It was this dizzying, infuriating cat-and-mouse game with a guy who treated maximum security facilities like they had revolving doors.
Section 4. A 144-year stop.
Russell's brazen schemes and wild deceptions continued for years, embarrassing the penal system time and time again. But eventually, the justice system decided enough was definitively enough. To guarantee he could never manipulate his way out again, the gavel came down incredibly hard. Russell was handed a staggering, ultimate consequence, a 144-year prison sentence. Yeah, 144 years. It was a massive sentence, heavily concentrated with maximum security provisions, designed to send a crystal-clear message. This time, there would be no phone calls, no fake badges, no easy way out. The authorities were absolutely determined to ensure that the man who had treated their prisons like a budget hotel would finally, permanently, stay securely behind bars.
Now, if this whole saga sounds exactly like a movie to you, well, it actually became one. A story this unbelievable just couldn't stay buried in police files and court transcripts forever. It caught the attention of journalists, and soon enough, Hollywood came knocking. In 2009, the dark comedy film I Love You, Phillip Morris was released. Starring Jim Carrey as the charmingly deceptive Stephen Russell and Ewan McGregor as the soft-spoken Phillip Morris, the movie introduced this wildly extraordinary life to mainstream audiences all over the world. Now, of course, Hollywood always dramatizes and polishes things up for the big screen, but honestly, the real life of Stephen Russell was way more complicated and far more audacious than anything a screenwriter could invent. So what should we really take away from this incredible true story? Look, most prisoners spend their days quietly dreaming about freedom, but Stephen Russell actively, repeatedly made that dream a reality, 14 times. His life took him from the structured world of law enforcement to high-stakes fraud, to a bizarre prison romance, to a record-breaking number of escapes, and eventually right to the silver screen. It sounds way too wild to be true, but sometimes reality really does outpace fiction. I want to leave you with a definitive choice to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. When you look at his methods, his motives, and his 14 escapes, was Stephen Russell a genuine criminal mastermind with an unparalleled genius for dismantling institutions? Or was he simply a highly manipulative con artist who just happened to exploit the human element of a deeply flawed system? Criminal mastermind or master manipulator? I'd love to know where you land on this. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the incredible stories that shape our world.